Hey, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Motor City Metrics. I'm your host, Chris Brown. We've got Yoop with us. We've got Mike Papchek with us. Raj will be along soon, I think. He's at softball tonight, and we figured we'd just give it a go right now. No Tigers baseball today, but a nice chance to kind of catch up on some minor league stuff, recap the 3 games this week against the Cardinals, and talk about baseball in general. But yeah, as always, I guess you do the housekeeping at first. Go download, like, subscribe, everything we do forever on YouTube and Twitters, and send us money and flowers and all that good stuff. And make some online bets with Bet Online, right? That's good. But yeah,
family show.
So I missed Sunday's show, the recap of the Royals series, and it's interesting. That one, not to go over stuff that you guys I'm sure talked about, but that one felt like a tough series until about the 7th or 8th inning on Saturday night, and then the Tigers end up pulling it out with a great Skubal performance and a nice comeback. And then you look back and you go, man, that could have been a sweep if not for Adam Frazier and his stupid home run robbery of Parker Meadows and some other things that happened in Game 1. And then Tigers go 2-1 against the Cardinals at home, and it kind of feels similar. They were dominating. We saw Jack Flaherty with a performance for the ages on Monday, only for the Tigers to score 1 run, miss some opportunities in the bullpen to kind of let them down for once. But then they come back and win 2 games. So I don't know. You have any particular thoughts from that series against the Cards?
Yeah, that first game, it's hard to pick apart bullpen moves, especially in April, because Hinch did bring it up that he wants to keep things fresh and make it through the season, and you can't sacrifice too much in April. I get that. However, in a doubleheader, I thought that the play would be to just, Foley came in, got the 2 outs in the 8th, looked good. Since he's already been up and he's already pitched, and he's not going to pitch in the next game, most likely, I would have came out with him in the 9th. And I said that in the as it was happening. Not that Foley might not have given up 2 runs himself. It's certainly possible. He gave up 2 runs to the Royals last week. But I just think I would have liked to have seen him button down the first game with his best guy. I don't think that would have been too taxing in the long run on Foley, since he had pitched in the game anyway. But he didn't. He went with Miller, and Miller gave up 3 singles. I mean, a couple of them weren't even that, they were clean hits, but they weren't crushed by any means. And the game slipped away. But credit to the Tigers, they came back out in that next game and secured it, and came back the next day and played a pretty nice game to win it. So 4 series wins in a row. Pretty good.
That on Tuesday, that second game, I had to double check this because I guess I didn't expect the Tigers to hit double-digit runs this early in the season. That was the first time they got to double-digit runs in a single game this season. So that was kind of nice to see. That was real fun for me, just being mostly a Cardinals and a Tigers fan. Those are my 2 teams. So offense is kind of hard to come by in both those towns right now. So the fact that the Tigers could win a game like that, when I wasn't sure they could really at any time, they really haven't this year. So that was just cool. That was important to me. I love seeing Flaherty do what he did against his old team too. Just feel bad we couldn't get him in the decision or anything, but
Yeah, I was tracking that along the way, keeping track of how that compared to Anibal Sanchez's 17 strikeout game for the Tigers, which is the Tigers franchise record for a single game. And Flaherty was ahead of the pace in terms of, he had 14 through 6 2/3, and Sanchez, I think, had 13. No, he had 14 through 7, and then got 3 more in the 8th. But Flaherty was ahead of him, and the difference was, it was a different era for one thing. Jim Leyland was the manager, so he let Sanchez throw 121 pitches, but the Tigers were up 10-0 in that game. And I'd like to think that Hinch would have let Flaherty go a little bit longer if things had been different in that regard. The Tigers had been winning a bunch. But I don't think A.J. Hinch is, he's not immune to having guys have their milestones and stuff like that, but he's also not going to have somebody chase it if it potentially endangers his health or, hurts the health of the season. But yeah, I was yeah, the whole thing. It just would have been more fun if they had scored some runs. Zach McKinstry gets doesn't strike out with a man on 3rd and 1 out, and other things happen in that game, of course. And the funny thing is that second game where they got out to the big lead, and then it was like, oh no, here it goes again. Matt Manning runs out of steam, and then Tyler Holton, who's been a little bit iffy lately, gives up a 3-run bomb to Alec Burleson. His first home run against the lefty, and Burleson's first home run against the lefty pitcher. It was one of those baseball things, but credit to the Tigers for then bouncing back pretty quickly.
So, Chris, tell me this: Jack Flaherty, what?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think this improvement? Where did that outing really come from? What's the genesis of it, and what has surprised you so far?
Yeah, I mean, I am certain that at least part of that was I'm going to show these guys, what I can still do. It's a natural human thing. Like, it'd be one thing if he was out there, just getting guys to whiff on like junk, but he was throwing 97, 98, like the hardest he's thrown in 4 or 5 years. I think he was extra motivated. It's like showing up in great shape to see your ex or something like that, right? You're like, look at this. But I also think, I think for the most part, we've seen that potential. I want to say he's 2nd or 3rd in the American League in strikeouts now. I think the Tigers liked what they might be able to do for him. And I think Raj pointed out that Flaherty is now using, it used to be, I think he threw his curve just against lefties, and now he's using it against righties too. Well, here is Raj, so maybe he can confirm that. Let me add him to the stage. Raj, were you able to hear me what I was just talking about?
No, totally no.
You asked me about what's going on with Flaherty, and I know you had written that article, and the one thing you noticed was he was throwing his curve more against lefties or righties?
Lefties. So his knuckle, he's throwing his knuckle curve more to lefties, which is allowing him. That was a pitch he was primarily throwing to right-handers, and so with that even distribution, that's allowing him to set up the fastball better, set up his slider better too. So his slider is back to what it was before, which was his big swing and miss pitch. And that sets up that fastball on the top of the zone. So he's been able to change eye levels. And that knuckle curve has more of like a kind of like a north to south action versus that sweeping slider he has, which cuts pretty well. So when you have those 3 pitches in the mix like that, that knuckle curve is, especially because that pitch wasn't, for whatever reason, he was only throwing it to right-handers. But now if he can throw it on left-handers, that evens the playing field for him.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, if you can throw all your pitches to left-handers and right-handers, it's going to make you a lot harder to hit. Yeah. And honestly, I didn't look deep into it, but some of those breaking balls he threw looked like they were really tunneling well with his fastball. They looked like sharp, late downward break. You're like, wow, that's impressive. You just hope he can keep it up, because we talked about it before a couple shows back. Like he's the guy he's been a Cy Young level pitcher before, and he's one of the few guys on this team who could really alter the fate of the team if he reaches his ceiling again. So that was nice to see. Just got to see more of it. And then, as other people were pointing out, Kenta Maeda, two solid starts in a row. I don't know. What do you think about that, Mike?
I mean, he's doing what he always does, apparently. I mean, I actually listened to his start on the radio, and Dan Dickerson, I love DD. That's the whole reason I'm even doing this podcast with you guys. Just listening to Dan Dickerson made me love baseball so much. But he was talking about a lot how Kenta Maeda was only really using 2 pitches. He was staying away from his 4-seamer. I think he said he was also staying away from his splitter. And those are 2 pitches that he's going to now, and they've been effective.
Yeah.
And it's something that he didn't do until, and it kind of worked out that his best start yet is the first one in May, because it happened on May 1st. But I think that I kind of paused to say it's by design, but it just seems like he may be the kind of pitcher that does need a little bit of time to acclimate himself, because now that he's getting going, we're seeing, oh, hey, maybe this wasn't a terrible signing,
Yeah, we hope so.
I mean, hey, the first couple starts, I was in full panic mode, to be honest with you. And I know it's only 2 starts, but when they're as bad as he was at the beginning of the season, I feel like it's okay a little bit to make the panic, but I don't know. I was really encouraged. I loved it, and I love the mix of pitches he's got now that he's using now.
I really thought the splitter looked terrific. On several points in that game. That's the pitch that, when you watched him with the Twins, that pitch could at times really dominate when he's having, especially that one good year. Again, we make the joke he faced the AL Central the entire shortened season there, but that was what was just mowing people down. And I'm not saying he's going to pitch to that level again. He probably never will. But if he's your, if he's going to be your fourth, fifth guy, that could be very effective throughout the rest of the year.
I mean, the one thing about Maeda too that is very indicative of a lot of these guys is the fact that warm weather does prevail. I mean, it's starting to warm up pretty quickly too, and he has been, and Bada being put this out too. He has had 2 awful games, but his other starts have been somewhat steady. So I think the people that were jumping on his case already, I thought that was just kind of ridiculous, and the velocity. Yeah, no, not you. Like, there's other people that were even far worse. This is worse than what's his face? Yeah, Jordan Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Calm down. No, but overall, it was what the Tigers got this week was quality starts. They got quality starts for an offense that, I mean, the bats finally showed up a little bit, which was nice to see, but it's the quality pitching that keeps them going, and you're going to need it against a team like the Yankees heading in the Bronx, where Juan Soto's been. I put it on the caption. I put like a Super Saiyan kind of like numbers because the guy is just, it's insane. So, and as far as there's some feedback in the chat, our pitching coach's guru is Federer going to be a manager candidate. I don't think, whoever the YouTube user is, I don't think Fett is the right personality to be a head man. He's very laid back kind of guy. So if you see him around the ballpark, he's really quiet. Like he's watching everything, but he's always doing something, but he's just kind of more of a background guy.
And to be fair there, AJ Hinch doesn't let him talk to the press.
Yeah, that's true.
So we don't have a great idea about his personality. I remember from being down there, I think I mentioned it before, he reminds me of the actor who plays Jonah on Veep. I don't know his actual name if anybody's ever seen Veep, but he kind of looks like that. He's very tall and skinny. But yeah, I mean, there are some great all-time pitching coaches who never became manager, right? Like, is it Leo Mazzoni?
Yep.
Do I have that right? I don't think he ever
correct.
became a manager.
Like Maddox in Texas.
Yeah, Greg Maddox's brother. He's been a pitching coach forever. Sometimes guys do move into that role, sometimes don't. I would encourage everybody, if you haven't already, to go listen to the podcast, our now rival podcast, with Jason Benetti and Dan Dickerson, where they interviewed AJ Hinch. And you get a good sense of why AJ Hinch is a good manager and what makes him tick. And I think Tigers fans are pretty fortunate that he's the guy leading the team, because he's not going to get outmanaged in 95% of the games. Sometimes you have to do things desperate when you're behind, but he's a smart guy. And I don't know. I mean, I do think that Robin Lund, I worry that he might go and be a head pitching coach somewhere else.
Sure.
But we'll see. I mean, if that's what he wants to do, good for him, because he sure seems to have had a positive effect on the pitchers too.
For a long time around baseball, the feeling was that pitching coaches didn't make great managers. I don't know if people really believe that anymore. I think if a guy has the goods, he has the goods. But I don't know how much of that is lingering throughout baseball. That might be something good for the Tigers to keep Federer around as well. I wonder if he ever wants to go back to college. That's what I've been wondering. Be a college head coach, because that's where he came from. But who knows? A lot of things can happen. The good news is he's here now and seems to be doing great work.
Yeah. I think he had a chance at the U of M job too. There was rumors about that, but that nothing came of it. So that's it. Again, I mean, the reason why, and Chris is correct, Federer doesn't let him talk, or Hinch doesn't let him talk to the press, but every time I see him around spring training, he's just quietly walks around. It's yeah. So
he's Slender Man. Hey, Killeen, Texas. One thing I did, we were talking about Flaherty, and I looked back and I noticed we had one of the comments we had on our Twitter post was Nick Spillane asked, "Do we see any chance you guys could see the Tigers deal Flaherty for a bat, 1-year deal, so he's expendable, and then bringing up Matting to fill his spot?"
Well, I think it's pretty early for that. Certainly, if we sit here on July 25th and the Tigers have played sub 500 baseball for a good chunk of the summer, that's very possible. But I think as long as they're within hailing distance of a playoff spot, I don't see that happening. I'd be pretty surprised. Plus, over the course of the summer, Matt Manning's going to get his chances. Someone's going to get probably a pulled hamstring like Jackson Jobe or, something like that. And, you're going to need him. So I would say it's possible if the Tigers stink. But if they keep playing like this, then probably not.
I don't really know. I mean, is there really that much value unless he continues to be the best strikeout pitcher in the American League? You're not really going to get an impact bat for him unless you include something else, really, I don't think. Just looking at past transactions, I just don't, especially since he's a rental. It's a guy that they're going to have for 2 months. So I don't really know if it would be even worth it in that case.
Yeah, and the one thing that we talked about a lot in the offseason, we haven't really talked about it yet this year, I don't think, is there are a lot of guys, pitchers in this rotation who didn't throw a lot of innings last year. Skubal was like 80. Mize didn't throw any. I think Maeda was hurt. And Olsen threw, I think, 130 or so. But Flaherty threw 145, I think. I think he threw the most innings at anybody last year. So if they do have designs on making the playoffs, he could be one of your 3 playoff starters or pitching in a wild card game. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think to Mike's point, there's probably not a ton of value there. So yeah, I don't think they're trading him unless things go really haywire.
Last year, I mean, major league level, just at the major league level, threw 105 innings last year. Skubal threw 80. Manning threw, again, just only at major league level, 78. And yeah, Wentz had 105, which kind of surprised me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's what you're looking at right now. There's heading into this year, the biggest thing was whether we're going to get that vet experience from, and it has been Flaherty so far. I mean, if he's did I expect Skubal to be good? Yes. Did I expect Skubal to be this good? I mean, he was really, really good. I mean, it's been, you're just kind of, I don't know. I'm always skeptical. Not skeptical. I'm just always like cautiously. I'm cautious. I don't like. I got really hyped about there's Tarik Skubal when we saw him early on in the minor leagues. I had him rookie of the year, and I bit off more than I could chew. So since then, I've been kind of conservative with that kind of stuff, except for Colt Keith. But either way, I think you guys bring up a good point, because to me, if you're gonna trade him, and you only trade him you got to trade him for some, like, I know he's more like a rental. He's gonna probably get a rental kind of like deal, but I don't know. There might be a team out there like Baltimore who's might go back and try to trade for him again. Who knows?
Well, I mean, Michael Lorenzen got Howie Lee when the Tigers traded him. So if you look at him as a similar comp, that's who they got. I'm not saying that couldn't be a decent player, but that's not a guy that's on the club right now. It's not a guy that's ready now. So if you're looking for a guy that's ready right now, I don't really think a rental starting pitcher is how you get that.
Yeah, it seems like, and it's a good point. Although, as Raj brought up, the Orioles, they do have a bunch of guys who are ready right now and seemingly have no place to play, but they also don't seem motivated to move any of them. So, it's funny I also saw people, after that start saying, "Hey, when do we sign Flaherty to an extension?" It's like, well, I guess, two sides of the same coin, right? I think Harris, in his capacity as GM in San Francisco, did do that with who am I thinking of? Wasn't Gossman, was it? I know that they brought in one guy. He had a good solid year, and then they re-signed him the next year.
Was it Wood? Was it Wood?
It may have been Alex Wood. It may, but again, we don't know necessarily if that was Scott Harris or Zaidi. But in any event, it's a fun conversation to have. But again, yes, it is May 2nd. We'll let's wait another 6 weeks or 12 weeks before we talk about trading any guy who's currently pitching for the Tigers.
Yeah, this is going to be, especially when you come into the series from New York. We'll get to that in a little bit. But the big part of the series, too, before we move on to our segments, was the Wenceel Perez show. As it's been Wenceel Perez. We talked about it a little bit on Sunday, and he continued the very, very good week for him, as he now has 3 home runs. He had a 2 home run game. His first home run game where he hit from both sides of the plate since playing in the Florida. I think Jason Beck pulled this up. I think Florida was it against the Tigers. So I think it was the Florida League when.
Oh yeah,
I can't remember if it was a complex league or not, or whatever the statistic was. But either way, Wenceel has been in terms of even playing defense wise, it's been holding his own out there. And tonight he's got OPS. He leads all rookies in OPS. So that's pretty cool. And it's something to, again, consider that teams are still going to be adjusting to him regardless, but still, you gotta be excited for this. Just the excitement of this all. It's just a good story to see. And then Andy Ibanez coming up clutch and doing exactly what Hinch asked him to do, which is get a pinch hit, do what he's supposed to do.
I think the nice thing with Perez is the games, the team is winning. A couple years ago, Akil Baddoo in his first few weeks did a lot of great things, and it was very exciting. But you know what? The team was 8 games under 500, and there wasn't a whole lot of optimism. But Perez comes in now, showing some power, showing some speed, just a breath of fresh air for the club. And by the way, they're 5 games over 500. So that's, I think everybody pays a little bit more attention and gets a little bit more excited.
Yeah, I was doing a search too. I was searching earlier because Perez is we got to say Wenceel Perez now, or Wenceel Perez. 961 OPS after 16 games. I was looking; it's like the 6th or 7th highest for a Tigers rookie in his first career 16 games. For what that's worth, behind Brennan Bosch and Bill Freehan. There's some names on there, but. I think one of the things that is worth discussing now, and we've touched on it a little bit before, and just based on where they're playing Perez, is you do have to wonder. People have speculated who's getting sent down when Urshela comes back. They're playing Perez in center field. They're batting him third in the lineup. I think Parker Meadows probably has, a week, 2 weeks, 10 days or whatever to really perform, or else he may be the one going down. Now, we do think he's obviously such a great defender that you don't want to lose that. But if they're comfortable putting Perez out there in center and batting him third, I think that's a pretty strong indication of AJ Hinch's confidence in him right now. And again, I tell you to go back to that podcast with Dickerson and Benetti, because Hinch talks about why he structures the lineups the way he does, and he never wants 2 lefties or 2 right, or more than 2 lefties or righties batting back to back. And he says that switch hitters are absolutely gold to him. And Wenceel Perez is a switch hitter. So yeah. I think that the odds are increasing each day that he's going to stick around and Parker Meadows is going to go back to the minors.
Pat, what do you think?
Oh my gosh, I feel like everything just left my head. He's just, I don't know. I've been talking ever since I joined you guys. I've just been talking him up. I absolutely love what he's been able to do. And I know that he had some defensive shortcomings throughout his time in the minors, but it looks like he might be able to pull off maybe league average, maybe a little bit below, but his defensive metrics aren't bad in his first couple games, in his first, he said 16 games, I think. And that's a great sign. And I think you make a really good point in that when you bat third and when you're showing this kind of offensive prowess that they so desperately need, and even you can afford to get rid of that really good defensive center fielder if the dude can play league average at the very least. So that's important.
Yeah, sorry, I was doing a little research going back. The player that we were thinking of for Scott Harris signing and then re-signing was Anthony DeSclafani. And also, yeah, I pulled up the OPSs. Oh, I had them and then they went away. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, Perez is the 6th highest through 16 games. It was Brendan Bosch, it was Bill Freehan, it was Alex Avila, and there were a couple more, and they disappeared on me. But whatever. Fun is fun. He's off to a great start. Don't know if it's going to last, but they're going to play him until it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, the role, and Tim mentions in the chat, and he's absolutely correct. His role was originally going to be a pinch hitter in pinch hit and pinch run, because in spring he had atrocious defensively. It was atrocious. I mean, just like when the times they were trying him out there in the infield, they're trying to do that again, and he just couldn't get it done. It was just a case of the yips or what have you. But I think he probably has earned it, because even the one thing that I noticed about him too, instinctively, he's a smart base runner. I mean, there was that play where he went the first to third. It was yesterday where it was on a single. He knew, like, just he instinctively was able to, and those are kind of like the little things that I know that Hinch talks about. And those are baseball moves. Those are guys who pay attention, and that helped him get that I believe he scored on the following run. So those are kind of things that help you win ball games, and those are the little things, and he does those little things well. And him out of the box through the speed, that was honestly the speed. We always know he was quick, but man, I did not realize just how quick he's looked to me since he's gotten called up.
What is the most homers he's hit in the minors?
The most, I can tell you that right now, because I was looking at that.
I think that was 2022.
Yeah. I think he hit 9. I think. Let me double check that real quick, because I have his.
I thought he's never been in double digits, has he?
No, he's never had double digits home runs. The
most
now
he's already got 3 in the majors.
Yeah, the most he's ever hit in one season was 20. I'm sorry. No, that's a lie.
I thought he hit
2022, 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Between West Michigan and Erie.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's hard pressed to say that the power aspect can be counted on moving forward for too long, right? Unless he's really reached a new level of maturity and a new understanding of how to get to his power, right? And maybe he has. I mean, I'm not saying that's impossible. It's just not very often a 3-hole hitter drops out of the sky on top of the manager's head, right? It doesn't happen a lot. So we'll see. The big thing is, I give Hinch credit for this. The dude's hot, and he stuck him in the 3-hole. No fear. I like that. Keep him there until he doesn't hit. The next week to 10 days will tell us a lot of how far this may or may not go.
Yeah, there's one thing to mention too. When he was before that fly ball adjustment, I wrote 3 articles on Wenceel in the last, quite a bit on Wenceel. The one thing that he did when he started elevating the ball more, even for that, I mean, it was getting more line drives. He was hitting the ball extremely hard, but it wasn't getting the home run. So maybe he's starting to get rewarded for that too. Because remember, this is a guy who was a slapping, I almost said slap and tickle for like the squeeze song. He was sorry, he was a slap.
Show is this?
Mike's like,
what are we talking about?
No. There's a squeeze song from 1981 called Slap and Tickle. Anyway, the point is, he was a slap hitter. He was a guy who really was kind of like line drive. I remember in West Michigan, he was just a line drive kind of guy and would run things out. Now he's hitting the ball. I mean, in the last couple of years, like Parker Meadows, they both made that evolution at the same time. Started going for air, getting that loft for swing. So thank you, Kevin. So Kevin recognized that squeeze song. It's got some really cool, funky synth on that song. But yes, Axel is a Met, by the way.
Yeah, what is Squeeze's big hit?
Tempted or black coffee. Yeah, Tempted is their biggest song they're known for.
Yeah.
Or depending if you're
Tempted?
the fruit, if YouTube doesn't, that one, or black coffee in bed. That's a good one too. Coffee in bed. All right. Anyway, all right. Let's go into the segments before we start going any more deep down, any more 80 song, 80 obscure 80 bands references. Let's go inside the numbers. Oh, apparently Zach Short was traded to the Red Sox today for cash. Well, there you go. Thank you, Kevin. I did not know that.
Go Zach.
All right. So, Mike, what is your insider number today?
Well, this changed when I looked at it, but it's okay. I have 17 is my number. And this might upset some people when they hear this, but out of all qualified hitters, I could have gone with a bunch of numbers for this because unfortunately it's going to come up the same to prove my point anyway. That is Colt Keith's current WRC plus, which ranks 178th out of 178 qualified hitters in the major leagues. I'm all about being patient. I'm all about giving guys chances, but it doesn't mean that we can't examine the fact that he is just dead last in a lot of categories that are really alarming. He has .021 isolated slugging, which is the second lowest. That was another fun one that I found when I was doing research on this. And it was at 12 before he hit that RBI double against the Cardinals. So he almost doubled it with that one hit. That's how bad it's been. And I'm worried, and I think it's okay to worry a little bit. It doesn't mean you should absolutely panic on him, but it's kind of alarming to see this poor of a start.
That's fair. No, that's fair. I mean, we're not gonna. Yeah, we gotta call it out the way we see it. Uper, what is your insider number?
Okay, mine is a couple different slash lines. First one is a slash line of 201, 264, 340. Not great. Second slash line, 290, 368, 469. That's an all-star player, right? More or less. So what those two slash lines are, those both belong to the Kansas City Royals as a team. Now, the Royals are a half a game in front of the Tigers, had a very good month themselves. Their run differential, I believe I heard, and I could be wrong about this, but it was one of the best months they've had in franchise history. They're in the plus 40s. So obviously they had a great month. What those slash lines are, though, the first one, the bad one, is their slash line with the bases empty. 201, 264, 340. With runners on base, they've been sequencing things so perfectly, 290, 368, 469. So they have a massive chasm between how they hit with nobody on and how they hit with runners on base. I just wonder how long that stays, such a differential, and how long they can continue to time those hits so nicely when they have runners on base. They are 13th in slugging as a team with the bases empty, second in slugging with runners on. That just doesn't seem like something that's going to last a long time. Watching that series, I think the Tigers and the Royals are relatively close, but I still have a feeling the Tigers are a better baseball team over the course of 162.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, that would make perfect sense. Yeah, I could totally see that too. I can see the Royals, even their pitching a little bit, kind of falling back a little bit. But all right, Chris, what's your inside number?
All right. Well, I'm gonna cram a bunch in here now because Mike, I hadn't actually looked at Colt Keith stuff, and Mike's comments were interesting to me. He is last with a 17 WRC plus, but I will say this: I was looking, his xWOBA, his expected weighted on base average, which is based on the quality of contact, is 125th out of 164 or whatever at 299, which is 1 point ahead of Cedric Mullins, who has a 99 WRC plus and it's exactly the same as Nolan Arenado, who has a 100 WRC plus. The difference is Colt Keith has a 197 BABIP right now. And that doesn't seem quite fair, but I don't think it's all bad luck, but certainly some bad luck in there. Anyway, the other one I wanted to bring up is actually not mine. It was Deadly Ninja Bees. He had a good one. He said his inside the number is 40. That is Riley Green and Mark Canha have scored 40 of the Tigers' 127 runs. Seems like a significant percentage. And I would agree with him there. That's almost 1/3 of the runs from two guys. Probably not sustainable there. And then my numbers, sorry to cram these all in here, are 42 and 94. And that is 42 home runs and 94 stolen bases, which is the current pace that Ellie De La Cruz is on. After 31 games, he has 8 home runs and 18 steals. We just saw the greatest power speed season ever last year from Ronald Acuna, 41 homers and 73 steals. I didn't think we'd ever see anything quite like that again. Felt impossible to beat. And 1 year later, here we are. Now, the trick, of course, is keeping that pace up, but you can't take away those 8 home runs and 18 steals already. I mean, he's looking at there are all sorts of different combinations he might have this year. He's an awfully fun player.
Watching him and then Mason Wynn, watching Mason Wynn throw the ball across the diamond, his bullets man. I love Mason Wynn. As a shortstop, I'm a big fan of that guy. I don't care if he's a Cardinal or not. I've been a big fan of the guy since when I used to do prospect stuff for Prospects Live. And those guys that along with it was funny. I think of drawing a blank on the shortstop's name all of a sudden for the Pirates. Onel Cruz. Onel Cruz? Yeah. Yep. Big fan of that guy too.
I'm pretty sure we saw Mason Wynn's first pitching performance in the minors at West Michigan.
Yes, we did. We did.
He was briefly a two-way player.
By the way, Tyler saying that De La Cruz is single-handedly sustaining his fantasy team. That's guy's like an MVP level for anybody who plays fantasy baseball. It's a good one. We did get a submission inside a number from Brian Morrissey, who DM'd me. Really good one too. His number is 7, and that was so in 2023. That was Riley Green's -7 was his defensive run saved, and 2024 so far it's a +7. So he has been his exact comments was keep this man away from center field. So I would agree with that. Yeah. And by the way, if you're curious to know in terms of defensive run save board, it is Marcus Semien with 10 and Dalton Varshario second at 9. So
I think Meadows had 6 or 7 too, but I don't know if he's still qualified.
Yeah, he's up there at 5. Parker Meadows is at 5, and then Mason Wynn's actually right there with him at 5 as well. So,
I was just looking. We saw Mason Wynn's only professional pitching appearance. That was the only time he ever pitched. Yeah, 1 inning. Wow. That was it. So good for us.
Yeah. We're there for history. So my insider number this week is there's 2 numbers. So mine's 240, which is the batter's average after May, the worst mark since 1968. So it's not just the Tigers offense that sucks. Everybody sucks. So as the league right now, the teams are batting 240. And so in terms of another number one to give you out there too is MLB so far this season, they're hitting 1.02 home runs per game, which is the lowest mark since 2015. So whether it's weather, whatever the case is, it's not just Detroit with that. So I mean, I know we're focusing on the Tigers, but that's offensively speaking, it's been inept all around. But I can see totally warming up. I mean, don't tell Cleveland that their offense is. I mean, there's just the amount of look the Tigers. I mean, if we're going a little bit, the Tigers do play Cleveland on the road. I'm actually thinking about going to a game down there.
Me too.
I've been wanting to go. I haven't been to a Cleveland game since Tommy Day, and they're doing a trophy they're doing a statue, and I went with a couple of friends. I think the Ohio story where what's his face? God,
Swisher?
Total. Pardon me.
Not Nick Swisher.
Who's the outfielder? Nick Swisher. Yeah, Nick Swisher. Yeah, Bro Ohio. Stupid term. Stupid term. Anyway, we're going to that was the last time I went, and my friends kept booing him the entire time, and these Cleveland fans in front of us were getting pissed off that we're booing Nick Swisher. Well, my friends were. I didn't care less either way because Nick Swisher to me was terrible. But anyway, yeah, it would be nice to go to a game, the Tigers game, see Cleveland. So before we go into the good, the bad, the ugly, I do want to segue into something that people will keep bringing up in the chat, and we should bring this up, is Xfinity dropping Bally and Bally Sports, or AKA Diamond Sports. I feel bad because the Tigers, I mean, they're neutral. I mean, they can't, what are they going to say? I mean, this whole thing sucks, but Diamond, I don't understand how Diamond Sports is like, you know what? You give us the money or not? You just filed for effing bankruptcy. Like, come on. I mean, that's ridiculous. The whole thing is handled like, especially if you're, I've been a cable cutter. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't had cable in a long time. I think going on 3 years since I've had cable. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's not an issue. I'll get the app. I'll watch it here in my office. I'll watch it on the living room. It's not a big deal. The only time I don't watch it on my phone is because it's glitchy on my phone. It never works on my phone right. For whatever reason, doesn't. Yeah. And no, diamonds are forever. That's pretty funny. And then there's ways you can pirate games through Reddit threads. There's so many different ways you can watch it. And I don't have time for that. I mean, I just don't have, like, for what we do, we got to be on top of things and all that. So anyway, it is really ridiculous. I mean, you're going to deprive the fans who, you know, and then I remember I posted something about Past Sports, and it was like, aren't you dating yourself for posting that? Past Sports was around in the late 90s when I was a teenager, you idiot. Come on. And the app, you know, the app is $20 a month. It's just, you know, it's like the app is fine. There's other apps that are cost more. Netflix is going up every year. No one complains about that. Yeah. No one complains about Max or whatever the damn name of it now is. It is Max, but you know,
it is 2024. If you're industrious enough, there's not a paywall or a scrambler that can block you if you really care that much and you don't want to spend a small amount of money on watching your favorite team. Or you can always just listen to the radio.
Yeah.
I do love Dan Nickerson. I'll preach it the rest of my life. Such a great, have a beer, chill on a boat and listen to a Tigers game. That is my soul. Yeah.
That's good fun.
Yeah. And Jason Benetti he does fantastic. He did a Steve Stone impression the other day. That was hilarious. He was on Kirk Gibson. I think it was earlier in the week. And he did an impression of Steve Stone. That was hilarious. It was hilarious because what it was is that Kirk Gibson was talking about how he had his first home run off Steve Stone. And he was like, oh, but, you know, Steve Stone, huh? And so after a minute, there's a play happens, and then he goes, you know, you have to bring that up. And he said it in Steve Stone's voice. It was theater. It was just hilarious. And so he was complaining about him and Monroe talking too much. I think they're fine. Man, people get really weird about some stuff. Like, I just don't get that. But here, Tyler, here's another one too. As an Iowan who has, oh my God, you too? Oh man, like VPN. Yeah. By the way, VPNs are fantastic. Yeah.
You know, for like $4 a month, they're great. Yeah. Almost a necessity nowadays.
What did Iowa ever do? Like here, what did Iowa do? Nothing. How does Iowa get screwed? I mean, you know,
it was just an accident of geography. All those teams surround it on the perimeter of Iowa, in Missouri and Wisconsin and Minnesota and Illinois, and they all demanded part of it. So they all got the entire state, and the whole state is primarily blocked out from those 6 teams. That's one thing they could do with this whole mess. Yeah, the Brewers and the Twins share some kind of agreement, some kind of cable package back in the day. They were the same company.
Oh,
so that's how the Brewers got into Wisconsin or into Iowa. And even though I've yet to meet a Brewer fan in Iowa, so I'm
say,
sure there are some
like,
maybe on the eastern side, maybe. But this is
let's
something
look
they
at a
could do
map
with
here.
this whole. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Uber, go ahead.
Well, this whole Bally mess, the whole thing that's going on, this would be an opportunity if they were ever serious about alleviating at least some small part of the blackout issue. They could eliminate some blackouts this month and get some goodwill out there. They won't do it. I guarantee you they're not going to do it, but it would be something that they could do. It would be pretty nice.
All right, so what's the biggest city in Iowa, Uber? Is it
Des Moines?
Is Des Moines? Des Moines, okay. So it is distance from Milwaukee to Des Moines is 373 miles. Okay, that's off like 180. Yeah, 180. Yeah, 180. Which, by the way, is one of the most boringest highways I've ever been on in my entire life. Good lord, is 180 boring? Oof. The Blue Jays are blacked out all Canada too.
Sure.
See, okay, yeah. So I remember reading the book Up and Away by the guy who was pretty much a POS in
Jonah Carey.
Yeah, Jonah Carey. Yeah. But the Jays got the Expos blocked out of Canada, or like blocked out of their own province at one point. So serves them right. Anyway, that's just ridiculous. Yeah, the Canada's team, we can't watch them.
Even if they would give you a discount, like say 6 out of 30 teams, 20% of the league is blacked out here in Iowa. They should give us 20% discount. They don't do that either.
I don't know, Chris. I mean, as far as even, it's funny. Like, you can clip minor league baseball all you want. You can do all these things in minor league baseball.
Hey, well, for now, one of these days they're going to come cracking down on us, and we're going to have to,
as long as we get to 16, as long as we get to 16-3, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't know why baseball that they broke up Iowa like a bunch of Horcruxes, and nobody couldn't. You gotta. I don't know. It's annoying. I guess you should feel fortunate here that we can watch a local professional baseball team. As I said, if you need to watch, there are ways online. If you need to know them, you could DM us.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's ways around this stuff. But again, for people who don't, what about you, Pap? How do you watch you consumer baseball before we go to the good and the bad, the ugly?
I plead the fifth. I have no idea what you're talking about. I would never break the law whenever I would watch a sporting event. And quite frankly, Roger, I'm offended that you'd accuse me of that.
Is it because you have a beard? Is that why?
Look, just get a VPN if you do stuff like that. And I don't know, but sometimes I feel guilty and I'll be like, yeah, I got to buy some Tigers merch. If I watch, 10, 12 games in a row, and maybe it's questionable how I did so, but I'm never going to condone that. It's really not that expensive, but as somebody, I got to be real. That was the only way I could be a sports fan when I first moved out of my parents' house. I couldn't afford streaming services. I was using my parents. And if they changed their password, which was all the time, it's not like I would get it back. So, this is just what it's ingrained into me, is if you want to be a sports fan, you make it happen. And I really wanted to be a sports fan back then.
Yeah, you do what you got to do. You do what you got to do. There's no judgments. By the way, we here at Most Metrics do not condone nor endorse any type of pirating of some sort. So
I condone.
You do that, we don't want to know about it.
I condone it all.
All right, so Chris Brown,
damn the man, burn the system down.
Yeah. But if you're looking to sponsor us, you can still sponsor us, and we're here for that. But at least we can. Do we take donations? I mean, hey, some people like that goes a long way. All right, it's now time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, Uper, what is your good and bad ugly this week?
All right, good. Very simple. We talked about it many times this winter. How important, and equally how nice it would be to see the club get off to a decent start. I think this qualifies. They're starting their first series in the month of May tomorrow at 18-13. they aren't mathematically eliminated like they were the last 3 years or so when they were 9-24 and a couple other terrible records. When we looked at the schedule, it just looked like something that should set up for them to be competitive. And to their credit, they've done it. You know, they haven't hit, but they've pitched their way to an 18-13 record. Now the schedule, obviously, they're going to have to start playing some of those AL East teams that bedeviled them last year. That's the next big step. Can they go into New York and at least not get swept? Are they going to win one this weekend? But preferably, can they win their 5th series 2-1 in a row? That would be amazing. And that would be a heck of a nice start to the season to get to 20-14 on Monday morning. So kudos to them to getting off to a good start. It was important. We talked about it a lot, and they made it come true. Bad. It's not real bad, but I mean, obviously Jackson Jobe, until he's in the majors, he's kind of the shiny bauble of the organization that you want to take care of and keep in a bubble. Pulled hamstring. Always hard to say how long those things last. Obviously, I'm sure they're going to treat him with kid gloves for the next several weeks. So unfortunately, as fun as it was to monitor what he was doing on the mound, that's going to go into hiatus for a little while. But just glad it's a hamstring and not something arm related. So a little bit of a bummer to the start of May, but it'll get better. Ugly. You know, there's a lot of hitters struggling around baseball. I mean, we know of a couple in Detroit. We talked about them enough. But, you know, even Ronald Acuna is hitting about 250 with 1 home run. Another number 1 overall pick, Henry Davis, is hitting at about $112. He's making Torkelson look like one of the best number 1 picks ever, right? The one I want to look at today is Corbin Carroll. Now, this is a guy who took the league by storm last year, was kind of the poor man's Ronald Acuna for a good chunk of the season until he hurt his shoulder. He hurt his shoulder, I want to say it might have been early August, whatever it was. Looked bad, but he came back and played, and he did okay. He still helped them get to the playoffs. And I thought he would come back out this year with an off season of rest and kind of get back to it. He has not. His power is still gone for the most part right now. And there's a lot of worry that he's going to have to get some shoulder work done if things don't improve. He is clipping along right now with a 60 OPS plus and a slash line of 197, 299, 248. That's the ugly one, 248 with a homer. So I don't know. Corbin Carroll's the kind of guy who, you know, I made the joke about the way he runs. He's so fast. It looked like he was getting chased by Cocaine Bear last year when that movie was popular, right? And he still has that speed. But he's not getting on, you know, he's not getting on base. He's showing no power. That's the kind of guy who could be a marquee talent, something the league could really promote. And it just hasn't happened yet this year. And I have a fear that it's going to be a shoulder surgery coming up.
Yeah. Bummer. Mike, what is your good and bad ugly this week?
All right. First, the good. I mean, I hope that this is not the first time that this comes up for him. And Riley Green, we talked about him on my first show about like, hey, we think he can pick it up a little bit. Well, I don't even know if he's really reached his full potential, but he's becoming exactly the kind of player that we thought he could be when he was drafted. He is second in the league in walk rate right now. He is only behind Juan Soto in walk rate, and he is ahead of Mookie Betts. So that's Riley Green smack dab in the middle of those 2 players in walk rate. That's a good position to be. He is, I mean, it depends on what site you use, obviously. I'm looking at Baseball Reference, and they have him as the number 1 overall WAR position player right now in the American League. Fangraphs had him 16th. But just to point that out, the fact that he's a top 15 kind of player, I mean, in certain metrics, of course, I'm cherry picking a little bit. It's what happens when I love seeing it work out for a guy. And it really looks like of all the young guys, I do feel like Riley Green is the one that I feel most comfortable relying on, in that I do feel like this is something that maybe he can't do this consistently throughout a whole season. That remains to be seen. But the fact that he's doing it now, I don't think he's going to regress enough that he's going to disappear completely. I think he's earned that. But on the flip side, with the bad, I got to go, and I believe somebody brought him up a little earlier, Tyler Holton. He was a guy that Hinch relied on last year quite a bit, and his numbers backed it up. Something I found interesting, he allowed 9 home runs all of last year and 85 and a third innings pitched. He's already given up 3 home runs this year. He's got an ERA 5.4 with a FIP at 5.91. So you can't blame it on any bad luck. Almost really it should be worse. The Tigers are lucky that the rest of their bullpen is performing, that they're going to let him be able to see if he can work things out and put him in low leverage situations. Like, they have other guys that can fill in, but not being able to rely on him is only going to make us think a little bit more about Hinch's bullpen decisions, because it's something that, whether you like him or you don't like him, I just feel like that's always a real topic of discussion among fans. It just makes it a little tougher, a little different than last year. And then in honor of my National League team, we just played the Cardinals. For the ugly, I'm going with the St. Louis Cardinals. They have, as a team, 21 total home runs this season, after the Tigers. Their man, Tyler O'Neill, that they gave up, currently has 9 home runs with his new team. It just, like, I kind of have an interesting perspective, because I grew up a pretty hard Cardinals fan, and I became more of a Tigers fan in the last 10 years or so. So I understand that people don't like St. Louis Cardinals fans, but yeah, it just seems like it's almost, they're playing a parody of themselves. They've thought themselves the smartest people in the room for so long that, like, I don't even really know what the Cardinal way is anymore, and I'm worried that they don't really know either. It's kind of twisted itself, and now where it just seems like what they think that means is that any move is something that they don't have to defend, because it's always worked out for them. So that alone, just the last in home runs, while a guy like Tyler O'Neill, who they benched last year for, how's it put? A questionable base running, I think is how they put it. Questionable base running effort, excuse me. It was on the effort specifically. They benched him. He's gone, and man, they could really use him right now.
Yeah, the Cardinals, offensively speaking, it was just like, it was either feast or famine throughout. I mean, it was just, I was expecting, I think there was some really good, there wasn't really any at bats that, like, they just, I don't know, they definitely could use him right now. And even the same thing with the way they handled Jordan Walker. I don't even get into that, but anyway. Yeah. As they mentioned too, any outfielder that's not used to be with the Cardinals is elsewhere has done better. So, Chris, what is your good and bad over this week?
Oh, we got you muted, Chris.
You're muted.
How about now? Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
You talked about the Cubs there for a second. My good is Shota Imanaga, who I think may have been a good before this year. But he's still being good, so we're going to talk about it again. He made his 6th start of the year yesterday, won his 5th consecutive decision. He now owns a 0.78 ERA with 35 strikeouts and 4 walks in 34 2/3 innings. Saw today that it's the lowest ERA in a pitcher's first 6 career starts since Fernando Valenzuela had a 0.33 in 1981. So it's Imanaga mania out there.
I love it.
Yeah, we talked about him a lot in the offseason. Thought the Tigers were in on him. Thought the Tigers were going to get him. Then we thought maybe the price was getting too high, and then the Cubs got him for a great deal. And boy, is he off to an awesome start. So good for the Cubs. I'll stay in the NL Central there a little bit and talk. We touched on this earlier, but that Brewers-Rays game the other day that resulted in a benches clearing brawl and ejections and stuff like that. I thought that the umps didn't do a great job there. Now, who knows? That may have boiled over no matter what. But in case you missed it, Freddie Peralta, the pitcher for the Brewers, early in the game gives up a big home run to Jose Siri. I don't know, it was like 450 feet or something like that. And Siri admired it, as players do. And I don't know, not much else happened. And then in the 6th inning, the Brewers are up 6-1, I think, at that time.
Yep.
And it's a 3-0 count, and Peralta hits Siri in the leg. Now, obviously, a lot of people are saying, like, why would he hit him there? Like, at that point in the game, that's the only hit he'd given up all day. There's you can look either way, but then so Kevin Cash comes out, the Rays manager comes out and talks to the umps, and then they toss Freddie Peralta. So there's no warning. I thought maybe, okay, give warnings, and then sometimes that works, a lot of times it doesn't. Things go crazy anyway, but they didn't give. They just tossed him immediately. So Milwaukee's manager comes out and gets ejected. And then later in the game, Abner Uribe, the hard-throwing reliever for the Brewers, is out there pitching to Siri, gets a ground ball, covers first base, meets Siri there. They start jawing at each other. Uribe throws the swing. I think Siri did land a punch later. It was your typical baseball fight, a lot of swinging, not a lot of landing. But yeah, there you go. Peralta, I think 5-game suspension. Uribe 6 games. The manager 2 games. Siri 3 games. I don't know. I'm not an umpire. You'd like to think that they know more of what's going on down there on the field than we do watching, but it just felt like a situation that could have been avoided, maybe with warnings. I don't know.
The thing that pops to my mind there is before Guccione tossed him, right? He throws that pitch. It's fairly obvious he plunked him on purpose. Okay. And especially when you're on the field, okay. I at a youth level, I've only seen a few times where I really thought someone was throwing at somebody, but when it's happened, and I guarantee at that level, those guys, those umpires, they know, they've seen it. Even if he gave warnings though, the fact that he was hit and that there was going to be some jawing, I got to imagine what Uribe did might have happened anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the act was done. Now, did the umpire kind of fire things up even a little bit more than necessary? I mean, that's definitely possible. You can make that argument. But the rule, if you just want to straight go with the rule, is if you think it's intentional, you got to toss the guy. And that's what he did. But I would agree, more often than not, you see warnings.
Yeah. Now, if we want to complain about umps, you could check the umpiring going on in the current Mud Hens Columbus Clippers series. There was a game-ending terrible call the other day, and then today there was a wild. We put it up. You can see it. There was a wild, very confusing double play that resulted in Columbus's manager eventually getting ejected. You can lip read that one pretty well. But we don't want to get too hard on the umpires here. And I touched on this last week, but I didn't go into it. But I wanted to this week, also because I didn't want to write another ugly. But it was looking back at the 2018 MLB draft, specifically the high school pitching class back then. Now this was the year the Tigers took Parker Meadows first overall, took Casey Mize first overall, took Parker Meadows in the 2nd round, got Skubal in the 9th round. Ultimately a solid draft for them. But I went back and looked at a preview I wrote when I was writing for Tigstown, and I wrote this about the high school right-handed pitchers. So the options at 1-1 are a bit limited, but overall, the group in 2018 is among the deepest and most talented of the last decade. And now listen to these names. The class is led by Ethan Hankins. Other impressive arms include Kumar Rocker, Cole Wilcox, Mason Denneberg, Carter Stewart, Mike Vassell, Braxton Ashcraft, Cole Wynn, Slade Ciccone, Austin Becker, and JT Genn, among others.
Wait, so I've heard of half of these guys, and the ones I do know are way past their prime. Most of these guys never had a prime.
It's
Kumar Rocker will make you look good next year.
Yeah, well, Kumar and Slade Ciccone has now looked okay for Arizona, although he went off to Miami for a couple of years. But it's we're talking 6 years later, and it's a really rough list. I wrote that in the February, so I didn't get Grayson Rodriguez, who ended up being the first or second, I guess, high school right-handed pitcher taken. But the rest of the right-handed high school pitching taken in the first 10 rounds, including Mason Englert, have combined for negative 1.2 WAR in those 6 years, and most haven't made the majors and aren't prospects anymore. So a good reminder that right-handed pitching prospects, all high school pitching prospects, are rough. And Tigers fans should be fairly lucky that Jackson Jobs appears to be working out, but you'd never know because, here we are with another injury.
It's not his arm. It's not his arm.
Yep.
Yep, it's not his arm. It's not his arm. So my good is involving an arm, and that would be it actually correlates into the good and bad. So the good is former Tiger Spencer Turnbull, who took the place of Haywan Walker after spring training, and so he's been dominant. 1.67 ERA with 36 strikeouts for 32 innings. So they trying to figure out what to do with them. So they look like they're going to be piggybacking with, I believe, the Christopher Sanchez. But the reason why that's bad is because it's affected Zach Wheeler, who got an extra day off, and he was in his last outing against San Francisco. He thought he didn't really pitch as well as he wanted to, and he was given an extra day off, and he made it be known he wasn't a fan of it. So, quote, I think it was more just routine this time, having more days rest, not being as sharp as I think is part of it. Some points in the season you probably need it, but it's just another day of trying to keep that rhythm that going. Just another day to try to keep it in sync, he said. End quote. So that has to do with what they're trying to do with Spencer Turnbull. So the good and bad kind of correlate with each other. I mean, this is a team that won 20 games. Their offense has been, but it's been their pitching, their bullpen, which is again not a David Dombrowski. The Dave Dombrowski thing. Look, yeah, the thing about Spencer Turnbull is, before we get into the ugly, the guy's had ability. The attitude's a different story. It's just if you some of the things that some clubhouse stuff that I would love to tell people about one day. Somebody, it was just some of the things behind the scenes. That being said, I mean, he's 32 years old. You hope he has it figured out, but anyway, just something to point out. Just it was interesting to see. The Phillies got a good problem with this. I mean, they only signed him for $2 million, took a waiver on him, but think about it, guys. If he was so good, somebody would sign him earlier in the offseason. Just saying. So, I mean, teams talk to each other all the time, and that's just one of those things where I'm sure that happened. It's just, yeah. Anyway, and my ugly to end the week is the Cubs and Mets game, where the whole controversy behind the call at the plate. So I don't know if anybody saw this or not. I mean, we can't post it because we'll get copyrighted, the death. But essentially, it was with one out and the Mets trailing the Cubs by one. There was a ball, I do believe it was struck the left field, and essentially it was ruled block. It was initially. So it was the last game that I'm lost my notes on here, so I'm trying to get them back in. But yeah, the question was that did Emilia illegally block the plate, and if not, did Alonso's hand touch home plate before he tagged him? And they went back for 4 minutes, and it was no inconclusive. It was ruled out, and you could see that there was the wrong call. So we thought to me, it looked like he blocked the plate, but it was a kind of a crappy call on that. And yeah, his foot was, it's just, he swore up and down he wasn't blocking the plate. I don't know about you, but I thought he was blocking the plate.
Well, he had his foot on the plate, right?
Yeah.
And it looked like the runner could get to the front part of the plate. The whole thing there is you got to give him a lane. Everybody knows that. He was trying to, the catcher was definitely up against the line. The throw, oftentimes that throw will bring you into the lane. Now, the catcher can block the plate once he has the ball. And I can tell you, even though they say they're cracking down on it, over the years, what happens is as long as you are making an effort to catch the ball and it's relatively close to you, they will let you come into that baseline and block the base path, and block the base. I think that was some leftover from that. It was a tough call. It was very close in regular time. that is a tough call to make because there's a lot of moving parts: the catcher, the runner, and the baseball, plus all around the base or the plate. So I tend to think they got it wrong. Tough one though. I can see how I can see why they're upset. There's no question.
I mean, I know this is a game in April, or May, but still. All right, go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, when I saw that initially, I saw it live. I'm like, oh my god, he was super safe. Like I was like, yeah, he's definitely safe. And the blocking the plate thing is a judgment call, right? So I don't know. But then I did see a replay where it looked like Alonso's hand actually bounced off the dirt and then was up in the air when he got tagged, and then he touched home plate. So it did look like he was actually out. What I don't get is how the ump could possibly have seen that. I don't think there's any way he could have seen that without the replay. I was shocked that they called him out on the field, and then they chose not to overturn it. I don't know if they confirmed it or the language there, but yeah, I don't know. That's tough, especially when it's. I mean, you can't have a much more exciting play in a baseball game, right? A play at the plate in a 1-0 game to end the game, and just to have the controversy is a bummer.
It's an underrated thing in there. I'd have to look at it again to see if it came up. Dust.
Yeah.
Dust is a big part of a play at home. As someone who has stood there before and you're kind of trying to see through the dust to see exactly what happened, that it's a factor.
Gotta soak that dirt.
Yes.
Yeah, it was just a way. Again, I know it's like if this was in the playoffs, that would have been. I mean, the uproar would have been even more. But luckily it's early in the season. But it has been kind of more of an ump show lately. The amount of I think the worst thing I've seen so far is Aaron Boone getting tossed out when it was even him that said anything, and it was the fan. And like some of these, it's just been the umpire.
Rollout called that karma though. Did you call that karma?
There's no question. If it happened to the right person, it happened to Boone. That's fine. That part is fantastic. That is priceless. That landed right in the right spot. But yeah, I mean, Hunter Wendelstedt screwed that up. And what I liked the fact was what was that one movie? You Die with the Lie, right? He was sticking with his story, man.
Oh yeah,
and that's whatever. And again, I don't want to make this about me, but I had that happen to me once. I thought a coach was bitching at me, and I yelled over, "That's enough! I don't want to hear it." And it was the dude outside the fence standing next to him, and I'm not saying that should happen on a major league field, but in my little world, I can see how that happened.
Yeah. I'd probably be the same way. I'd probably be ready to pull the trigger, but I also at the same time I don't want to ump. Pap, I mean, let me ask you before we get out of here, Pap, would you ever consider umping at all for extra money?
Oh, 100%. I have thought about it. I've thought about doing it in almost every sport. Are you kidding? I mean, at this point in my life, I don't think that my spirit could be broken by an angry parent, because I think I would be able to completely deter it, because you know what I'm going to do in that kind of situation? I'm just going to laugh. All right? That is my inclination. And with anything dumb like that happens, I'm going to laugh. They're going to yell more. I'm going to laugh harder. People, I don't know. Maybe I'll get swung at. I don't know. But I promise you, it wouldn't get me down. I can handle that. I have absolutely thought about it. I'd love to.
That's why I asked you that question, because I knew you would be the type of person that would be like kind of diabolical in a sense of just going, who is this guy? Who is this guy?
I would egg him on. I would be that jerk. I'd be like, say out of the corner of my mouth, just something a little, just to push him forward a little bit. And yeah, I'd be that person. I definitely would.
You'd be. All I can tell you is, from someone who's been doing it for a long time, that would be a high wire act for you, okay? Because you run into the wrong couple of people, things get ugly quick.
And just don't do that.
And it probably depends on the gun ownership rates in your state. You probably want to be careful there. And grandparents are the worst, by the way. There's just no question about that.
I believe that. I mean, if you did that in Brazil, if you did that in Brazil, you're a soccer ref, you'd be dead. You'd be beheaded. Somebody would piss.
I go the other way. I'm the absolute opposite. I do I ignore everybody. I give them nothing. I mean, I don't even acknowledge parents between innings if they want to talk about the weather, and that's the way I roll. But I've certainly had umpires who like to engage the fans, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. How about you, Chris, when you're coaching basketball with Harrison this year? Basketball was some.
No, I remember the only time, I watch, he plays soccer. I don't yell at the refs in soccer. I yell at the players. The only time I got upset at an ump in a Little League baseball game for my older son, because it was, I was the first base coach. And, there was a play at first, and the first baseman dropped the ball. He didn't have the ball, and the ump called him out. And I was like, the ball's on the ground. And then, it was like 98 degrees. It was probably the kids. Like, the ump was like a 16-year-old. It was probably like his 8th game of the day. And so after like a minute of being upset, I went over and I apologized to him. I said, that's not who I am. But I could see if I were the ump and it were I don't like heat. We've discussed this before. If it's 90 degrees and I'm umping, I could absolutely see myself fighting a parrot. To the death.
That is not what I was expecting to hear.
So yeah, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, there was a one time when I was coaching baseball, and everybody thought because of my temper, everybody thought that I would lose my temper a lot with umps and kids in general, which I thought was funny because I'm like, guys, I might yell or throw my hat during bowling or darts or any activity, but when they're around kids, I'm a little different. But there was one time we're up, and this is when I muttered. It was actually, I'm more mad at players. Like today, for example, prime example today, some dick hits a home run out. He hits a home run in beer league softball. Tell me if I'm wrong about this. No one runs the bases on a home run. You just go to first. You call it a day. This guy's a guy who usually hits home runs. This guy tried the bases, and you're up 11-3. You are, and if you're listening, I'll tell you your face. You're a dick. I know because some of the teams, some of us get recognized in the league we play in and all that. If I saw you in the street, I'd tell you you're a dick. Really, you gotta pimp that home run up 11-3, douchebag. Come on.
Freddie Peralta would have put that guy down.
I'll be honest.
go ahead, Chris.
I didn't know that was a thing. The last time I played softball, we all ran no matter what. Like I didn't know that people did that.
Yeah.
But that was 10, 15 years ago.
I mean, even like if I hit a home run out of the park, that'd be the first time I ever did that in my life. Yeah, I might run the base, do that maybe. But out of respect for the other team, if I'm up like 10, I'm not gonna do that because who cares? It's beer league softball. But it was just so man. Anyway, whatever. Just don't be a dick. There you go. Just don't be a dick.
I got a quick story. I actually was in a situation where we were so desperate for umps, and this is another reason why I'd actually do it. They were so desperate for umps.
They are.
My friend's dad, like in I was like 7th, 8th grade baseball, had to ump, and his helper didn't show up. The other guy that was supposed to ump with him didn't show up. So he asked his son, who was on a different team in our league that wasn't playing that day. And this was like a playoff game, and I played in a game that one of my closest friends to this day was umpiring. And he made a really bad call, and he told me 15 years later, he's like, dude, I made the wrong call. I thought if I called you safe that everybody would think it's because we knew each other. So he called me out on a terrible throw to third base, and I didn't forgive him for like 10 years. But I mean, we're great friends now, but the moral of that story is that they need umpires badly on all levels of baseball. So, always something to consider.
Yeah. I just don't have the mental fortitude for some parent to yell at me, especially if I'm like in a affluent neighborhood or something. And it's going to be one thing. I know what's going to happen. They're going to say some sort of fat joke or something like that. And I'm just going to I'm not going to have patience for it. Even if I was skinny, I wouldn't have patience for it. People get cruel comments, and I'm just going to leave it at that. By the way, the last question in here was with Sir Gibson Long on the 60. Is there 2 spots open on the 40-man?
From what I could tell, he's not on the 60-day IL yet. Everything I see says 15-day IL. I don't know why they wouldn't just switch him to the 60. Teams just kind of wait to do that, I guess, until they need to. I don't know what the benefit of that is. we still don't know what the hell's going on with Eddie's Leonard, because you look at the Tigers 40-man roster, there's 39 names on it. And Eddie's Leonard isn't on there. So we've been assuming that he's on the 40-man roster, but no place says that he is. And we still we still don't really know what's going on there right now. So I don't think they have an open spot. They've been acting all year like they don't have an open spot. And I don't think they would have just gotten rid of Andre Lipsius for Buddy Kennedy if they had an open spot. So I don't really know what's going on there. But yes, if they wanted to make a move, they could simply put Gibson on the 60-day, and then they'd have an open spot in the 40-man. I don't know. I guess, like I said, you don't do that unless you have a need, I guess. So if something were to go wrong, I don't know who they would even call up at this point. Malloy, Young.
Yeah.
Malloy's on a hot streak right now, so maybe, but
it's like 13 for 20. His last 20 or something.
Something like that. He had like 5 or 6 consecutive 2-hit games, and yeah, honestly, I don't know. I don't know what they would do. Maybe just a waiver claim, somebody else from a different org.
They claimed they signed a guy to a minor league deal who's hitting in Australia. Yeah. So we mentioned Ty Adcock, and then they signed Riley Unroe, who played shortstop for the Mud Hens tonight.
So no catcher in there, huh?
And they traded Drew Anderson to Korea.
Yeah,
Cash.
well, yeah, that was one of
cash.
those situations. Well, I know we were talking about, or somebody was talking about, the Keston Hura and the various minor league opt-outs. And I think the next one is June 1st. So they're going to have to figure out what to do with him. I mean, that would be one other option. You could put Gibson Long on the 60-day and call up Keston Hura to play first base if things don't get better with Torkelson. But I think they're, you just got to cross your fingers and hope that they do.
Yeah, because again, I don't think he's going to be. People want him up here. So, Eddie's Leonard is Josh was correct about that. I think he is. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, we've thought that all along, and for whatever reason, he's just not listed as such anywhere. We need to when we're down there in the press box, we need to confront Jeff Greenberg or Scott Harris, and we're just going to knock on the door and.
Or I can always text Ryan Garco and be like, "Hey,
yeah, figure it out." Although, he doesn't like to talk about injuries, but. Oh, you've been muted by yourself or by me? How'd you get muted?
I think he did it to himself.
There you go.
Oh, okay, there we go. It's stupid technology. All right. So, do we have any final questions or anything? Or are we good?
No, the only other one I saw was did Avila screw up by taking Torkelson first overall? And it's like, well,
Yeah,
look at
still
the draft.
don't really know.
Look who got
But if
picked
he
after him.
did, every other, it seemed like he was like a consensus number one. At least that was the idea I kind of got from that draft.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, if not consensus, he was probably the overwhelming, 20 to 25 teams would have taken him first overall. And as you were saying, look at everybody else from that first round in particular, and the best players are pitchers that would never have gone first overall. It just, right now, by certain metrics, Torkelson looks like one of the worst first overall picks of all time, but there's still time to get out of that. And we've seen what he can do when he's going right. So you just got another one where you cross your fingers and hope he figures it out. Yeah,
because otherwise right now the options are first base are rather limited, even from the minor league standpoint. So yeah, and somebody asked earlier, I think it was Stan asked, how come Malloy's not getting reps at first base? That's a very good question. And to tell you the truth, I have no answer for it. I mean, if you're gonna Akil Badu's been hitting pretty well too, but its numbers are, if you look at his numbers deeply, it's like just kind of like it could go either or. But Malloy, if you're gonna give Malloy a consideration at some point too, we'll see what happens. But so go ahead, Uper.
This weekend, I'm telling you, it's really nice. I mean, they roll into Yankee Stadium.
I was just segue right into that.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, they have Olsen, Mize, Skubal lined up to face the Yankees. Really should be entertaining to see. Probably their three youngest, best pitchers take on Soto, Aaron Judge, and the rest. So, really looking forward to this series. If they can get two, That would really be a pretty nice step.
Yeah, especially because the Yankees have their bullpen is. The Yankees have had a pretty tough schedule. I mean, if you all things considering, comparatively speaking to the Tigers, in terms of like just taking on more of their AL East components, or they played Milwaukee. They split the series with Oakland at home. So Oakland's sticking around. I mean, it's weird, but I mean, we saw they play the Tigers well, but they scored 30 runs back-to-back games against Milwaukee. But then it's like but earlier in Baltimore, they lost 2 out of 3. So this is a team that they got Marcus Stroman going, and Stroman has pitched. He's pitched pretty solid. So that's a little more than what I'm sure that the Yankees are happy with that. But yeah, it should be some good pitching, the right field porch should give some Tiger. I'll say this. I'm gonna call my shot. I think Cole Keith hits his first home run in Yankee Stadium. That's what's going to happen. He's due. He is due. He'll hit one out, and I think he'll hit one in the right field. He'll smash one.
There are 12 qualified batters in baseball right now without a home run, and 3 of them will be playing in this series. Gleyber Torres doesn't have one, Torkelson doesn't have one, and Colt Keith doesn't have one. Maybe they all get one this series.
That'd be nice.
That would be nice because Colt Keith's due, and same thing with Spencer Torkelson. And either way, it's gonna be a fun series before they head to Cleveland, and that's gonna be to me. I'm looking forward to the Cleveland series. I'm not trying to look ahead too much, but honestly, I really want to see what Cleveland's all about. The Guardians are, like I said, every single time they're like the Cardinals in some way, shape, or form, but not as dickish.
I don't know, man. 1A, 1B.
There's a few Cleveland fans out there that I've come around to Cleveland a little bit, but
yeah, you're right.
Anyway.
There is probably a few Cleveland fans out there. You gotta make the joke when it's there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a good point. All right. So, at any rate, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back possibly Sunday, depending on how everything goes, if everything lines up correctly, and then otherwise, we'll be back Monday for the Week 6 recap for the Tiger Related Reports. We're talking, and don't forget to go to TigersMLReport.com. Check out the latest article from Chris on Ty Madden's first start in AAA, which was not good, and Chris breaks it down a little bit.
Worst start of his career. It was the worst start of his career.
That whole game was weird too. That was a weird game.
Yeah,
not as weird as the West Michigan game. Huh?
Yeah, there are a lot of weird baseball already. In Lakeland, not to get sidetracked tonight, but Lakeland lost tonight. They headed into the 9th up 3-1, I think, and lost 5-4. Their first home loss of the year.
Yeah, there's and I know people mentioned Workman, but we'll talk about more Gage Workman on Monday. So if you're interested in, it's my only show. Yeah. So, and I'm writing an article about Gage Workman among other things. They'll be out tomorrow. So go to TigersMLReport.com. Also, please consider donating. It goes to everything we do. So we can't travel without doing it. We don't make a lot of money. We do this for fun. It's great. But please also subscribe to us on Twitter. We have a certain number we're trying to reach right now. We're 900 away from, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to tell everybody. I'm just going to tell Chris. Should I just tell everybody what we're trying to do here?
Just wait. I think just wait.
Okay.
Wait till we do it, and then we'll celebrate.
Yeah, we'll celebrate. Yeah, we can't tell you what we're trying to do, but there's a certain number we're trying to get to, and we're getting close. So I'll tell Uper and Pap. I think you guys know about this. So, but on that note, thank you so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching. And we'll talk to you either Sunday evening live, or if you listen to it on the podcast, thank you for subscribing to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll talk to you soon.